Hello and welcome, I'm Tefera Gedami. There has been so much traffic at this wise these past few weeks. Delegations have come and gone, but is there anything new? Ambassador Dena Mufti, the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is here to shed some light. A very warm welcome to the program.
Pleasure.
Is change coming in Egyptian-Ethiopian relations? The Foreign Minister Tedros Adhanom attended the inaugural event in Cairo last week. There seems to be a change in the tone, in the language, and so on and so forth. Is that the correct assessment, you think?
Yeah, definitely. There is a change of the tone at that level, at the level of the president, the new incumbent, and at the level of some officials, and at the level also of some think tank leaders. But it's a change to be awaited. It is a change to be seen if it is going to be translated into deeds. It's something that seems evolving. However, the substantial characters of the past are still lingering, and there are some corners who still have very big misgiving because of the mindset that had been there for years. But definitely there is a change of tone. During the visit of our Foreign Minister, His Excellency Dr. Tedros, he had the conversations with both the new president as well as the Foreign Minister, where he has felt that there is a change of tone, and that they have been time and again referring to the peaceful instance. There is an inclination to peaceful instance, peaceful engagement, peaceful discourse, as different to what that corner had been drumming over the last 2-3 months.
I understand that, but what do you expect from the Egyptian side in the next few weeks or perhaps month?
Well,
one of the bones of contention, for example, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dome.
Definitely, it may be very difficult for us to, in fact, set a time framework for it, but there are things that we would like to happen. One is there is a process. There is a substantive process that we have started in Khartoum. This was a tripartite negotiations so as to implement the recommendations of International Panel of Experts.
The Egyptians at one point pulled out.
Definitely, Egyptians have pulled out January 4, 2013. And that was a substantive action, that was a very critical one. And in fact, that was a forum where the 3 countries, meaning Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, were dealing with the recommendations of the International Panel of Experts. We would expect that process to roll again. And I think that is the forum, that is the area, that is a place where we can deal with all the differences. And dealing with because the International Panel of Experts, which the Egyptians were part of, which they have been actively participating in, together with the international experts as well, composed of, in fact, 3 of us, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan. They have already hammered out all the differences. All the necessary recommendations are put there. They put forth, and they have already presented it to the government of the 3 countries. And we have had 2 consecutive meetings in Khartoum. The 3rd one was there, and the Egyptians walked out. I think the first thing is to come back to the forum they have walked out from.
So they have already decided that there is no point in leaving the conversation table.
Definitely. That is a table, that is a critical table. That is where we can iron our differences. That is where we can deal with all sorts of differences. And definitely that is a place where we should see an eye for an eye. And therefore, going back to that table is critical. It seems they are sensing that, and some of them are regretting that they should miss it. And I think that is something being awaited. I think the priority of the priority is to come back to that table.
So the Egyptians have felt that they have lost because they they left this conversation. They walked out of this tripartite
Talks.
Talks. Is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly. That's what has happened, and I don't think they benefit from it. None of us could benefit from working out, from talking to each other. Talking to each other is critical. That is what we are open. We have been always saying all along. Ethiopia has been saying all along, let's talk. Let's keep talking. Let's roll that process. Let's make it alive. And the time was spent. Time was unnecessarily spent because that talks was halted. Now I think we should save it. We should make up for the lost time.
Speaking in along bilateral relationships, relations, are the Egyptians moved a step forward along that line too? I mean, is there some sort of rapprochement going on between the two countries, Ethiopia and Egypt?
You know, there is nothing substantial that we can talk about so far, except gestures and some, the statement by the president, as well as some officials, and the engagement with our foreign minister. There are some indications of them, Egyptians, wanting to talk to Ethiopia. For example, the new president has said they would like to engage Ethiopia. He said he would like to travel to Ethiopia even 10 times if it is necessary. This is positive. He said there is no need for having any contention, any controversy with Ethiopia because of the dam. And this is positive. This is what we have been saying all along. These are constructive statements. We want to nurture them. We want this echo, in fact, to be a universal one. This sentiment should be echoed across Egypt. We want the Egyptian elites, the Egyptian intelligentsia, Egyptian media, Egyptian political leaders, in fact, to more or less capture this echo.
But it is easier to say than done, as I usually.
You are right, Tefera, you are right. It's very difficult because this sentiment, this mindset had been there for almost over 1,000 years. There were misperceptions around Nile and Ethiopia, the other Nile tributaries. And this sentiment has been there for years. No one should be naive to think these sentiments that had been built there, that had been there for years, if not for centuries, can be overcome overnight. However, there is no option. And the option is actually to get rid of the myth and grip the reality and deal with the reality and reckon with the reality. The reality is that this transboundary resource belongs to almost all riparian countries. And all riparian countries are entitled to benefit from this natural resource. This is a God-gifted natural resource. It's gifted to all of them. It's neither a gift of Ethiopia nor of only Ethiopia nor Egypt. And it's a gift for all riparian countries. That's why the riparian countries had been negotiating over years, and they have come out with what they call CFA, whereby there is a sense of equity and a sense of also not making any appreciable harm to any riparian countries. Those principles in the CFA cooperative framework agreement, which have been agreed in Entebbe, which about 6 countries have already signed, and others also have ratified, including Ethiopia and about 2 or 3 other countries have already ratified it. And except Egypt and Sudan, most of the riparian countries have already signed it. And others are also in the process of signing it and ratifying it through their parliament. So in that CFA, the principles, the pillars are 2. One is equitable use. Equity, sense of equity is there. The other one is actually not making any appreciable harm to any riparian countries. So those pillars, those principles in CFA would accommodate all riparian countries, including Egypt. Above all, Ethiopia also, while building this dam, Ethiopia had been talking about not harming anyone, any low riparian country. And we are confident, even before the study of the IPO, which came out with the conclusion that this dam won't hurt Egyptians, we were confident that it won't harm it. We proved it. We proved it in the way that we proposed the creation of the International Panel of Experts, composed of 3 countries and the international experts. They have carried out studies, and by other studies they have already proved that this dam doesn't hurt Egypt. See it?
Interesting. Lots of things have been happening in the last few weeks and months in terms of high-level delegations from different countries. I want you to recap for me what exactly happened. Let's start with the one that just happened this week. That's the Israeli Foreign Minister David Levy visited Ethiopia, leading what?
Leading business delegation of 50. Yeah.
Number one, it's too late. We've never seen such a delegation from Israel, although you've expected.
Yeah, definitely. You are right, Tefera. You are right. But there is a saying which goes like this: "Less than never." And well, we have been telling them. We told them frankly that given the Ethio-Israeli relationship, which has also a sizable sentiment in it, we said that relationship, that diplomatic relationship, political relationship, cultural relationship, which has existed for years, which is also considered to be legendary by some of our citizens as well as theirs, is not backed by economic relationship. However, let it is, they have arrived with the 50 business members from the business community, composed of various sectors, various sectors like agriculture, information and communication technology, security technology, extra, and water technology as well. That is also something to be commended. As I have already earlier said, it's better to be late than never. Finally, they have come, and in fact, this is what has happened only recently, but there is a recent trend that we can talk about of some of our friends from the West.
Right, exactly. We'll come back to that. But is it all about business? What is it all about?
Mainly,
this is quite.
It's about as well. It's actually political relations. It's holistic. It's about strengthening political relationship existing between the 2 countries, cultural relationship existing between the 2 countries, which is vivid because of the existence of the sizable Ethiopian Jew community in Israel, and the cultural exchange, cultural relationship link between the 2 countries. It's also about diplomatic relationship, about supporting each other at international fora, also on issues pertinent to the interest of both countries. It's also about talking of common interests, commonalities. There is convergence of interest when it comes to fighting the menace of terrorism in the region. For both of us are located in Ethiopia, being located in the Horn of Africa, had this problem of dealing with the menace of the one form of terrorism presented here in the form of Al-Shabaab. Israelis also have this interest of fighting or encountering the severe impacts of terrorism in that region. And also there is also convergence of interest here, and we have been talking also about this.
The Germans.
Yeah.
Finland. What else? It's not. It was traditionally. It was the Chinese, the Indians, and lately the Turks. Now it's moved west.
You are right. You have brought up a very interesting topic. This year, particularly, is very different in the sense that our friends and colleagues in the West who have been visiting us, the scope of the visit had been expanded to the economic scope, in the sense that, as you have already mentioned, the German foreign minister during his visit here has come with the business community. The Finnish foreign minister was here. They came also with the business delegations. The Japanese prime minister was here. He came also with sizable business community and business delegations. And I think that trend has been extended to the extent of the American State Secretary. In fact, on the follow-up to his visit, there was this, what we call African-American Energy Summit. So this is what we have been aspiring for 4 years. This is what I have been longing for. I have been longing for upgrading our political and diplomatic relationship with our friends to the economic level. That is why we call the main thrust of our diplomacy is an economic diplomacy. And this is where we're heading now. And I think the trend is very good. It's okay. It's something that should be strengthened.
But it just started happening.
Yes.
Why so late? Why didn't they come on aboard very early on?
Yeah,
Is it a failure on your part to attract them, or they were not convinced that they could do business in many ways with Ethiopia? What was the problem?
Well, the reason for the delay could be a mixture of both you have said, and maybe a limitation on our part to convince them to come, or them not being persuaded or not being convinced about the economic development in Ethiopia, the benefit that Ethiopia can give for investment and for other business activities, or other factors for that matter. However, thanks to Google, now they are convinced of the fact that Ethiopia is one of the fastest growing countries. It makes sense to make business in Ethiopia. It gives profit as well for a businessman. I think this is what have attracted them, and here we go.
But I'm surprised, though, because talking to some Western diplomats also on my show, and this is one of the questions that I posed to them, they tell me that they do not control private businesses. Private businesses manage their own affairs. So they move in, start some kind of investment in any given country when they feel they can make money out of it. So we are out of all this. We cannot push these people to come over and do business. So what changed?
I'm not quite sure that the government doesn't have any influence of the business running in this country or any investment ventures abroad. Even the governments in the West, in one way or another, have influence on business abroad, on how business conduct things, by giving them informations, by leading them to businesses, in fact by securing the environment, the international environment for them, even by at times giving them a financial guarantee for that matter. So I think this time around, perhaps as you have already said, it's not a matter of not those governments not having an influence on the businesses to sway them, but it's because of the conviction, the level of the convictions of the economic benefits that they can get from Ethiopia. I think now substantially they have realized it, and they have felt the fact that Ethiopia is a place where they can make business, and they're coming in a bulk, and hopefully they will come more. This is also what we have been telling them. When any official from the West asks about the expansion of the Chinese, Turkish, or Korean investment in Ethiopia or in Indian, we tell them, you come too. You compete with them. You also deal with us. This is what we have been telling them all along. Now I think they have heard it, and they're responding to it.
But you're not saying that, it's plain, it's simple to do business in this country. Right. You're not saying that.
Right.
Because there are a number of institutions in this country, I'm talking about government institutions, that need to get their acts together.
You're right. The government is aware of the hurdles, inner hurdles, institutional hurdles, bureaucratic bottlenecks and others. And always the government is trying its level best to minimize those hurdles and to eliminate it if possible. But we're not naive to believe that it's all rose, and that things are easy. However, we feel that also, the government feels that there are improvements, and there will be more improvements as well. As we attract more businesses, as more investment comes in, I think the level of the preparation at the national level should be enhanced and should be further strengthened. This is the belief on the part of the government. The government believes there are bottlenecks, there are hurdles, that to be dealt with, that to be reckoned with.
Well, Ambassador Dena, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tefera. Thank you, as usual.